early morning of May 2nd, 3rd, 1862, Brigadier General William B. Franklin's detached 1st Division of Major General Irvin McDowell's 1st Corps, 11,000 strong and having been sent down the Chesapeake Bay on troop ships in order to reinforce Major General McClellan on the peninsula, finally arrive at Fort Monroe and begin debarking from their vessels to join McClellan's troops in the siege works outside Yorktown. However, the next day, May 4th, the Federals find Yorktown abandoned and the rebels moving up the peninsula to try and escape towards Richmond. McClellan quickly orders Franklin's division to re-embark on their troop ships to sail up the York River, then land on the beach called Brickhouse Point, located near Eltham Plantation and positioned opposite the river from West Point, Virginia. His hopes are to cut off General Johnston's retreat before he can reach the defensive works outside Richmond. If Franklin's troops move fast enough, they can move southward through Barnesville and Burt Ordinary and hit Joe Johnston's army as it retreats through Williamsburg. If the plan works as McClellan intends, then Johnston's Department of Northern Virginia might get caught between two Union forces and be smashed for good. The plan doesn't work out the way Little Mac hopes. However, as his troops pursuing Johnston become caught up at the Battle of Williamsburg on May 5th, fighting against James Longstreet's division, which is serving as a rearguard for Johnston's retreat. Meanwhile, on the same afternoon, Franklin's 1st Division gets to work. His troops make haste for the newly opened wharf at Yorktown. Brigadier General Franklin reasons that if his men reach Brickhouse Point by sundown, May 6th, they might salvage McClellan's plan and get in the Confederate rear. From the wharf at Yorktown, Franklin's 3 brigades under Brigadier Generals George W. Taylor, Henry W. Slocum, and John Newton load onto transports and sail upriver. For the soldiers of Franklin's division, it is a beautiful voyage. From the decks of the R.S. Spalding, a New Yorker in Slocum's 2nd Brigade recalled, "The journey was one that will never be forgotten by the soldiers of that command. The banks and sloping hills are green with the heavy foliage of May, and the beauty of the scene far exceeded anything before witnessed by the men on the soil of old Virginia." At first, it appears as if Franklin's troops have arrived in time. At 3 p.m. on May 6th, the first of Franklin's soldiers come ashore on pontoon boats, landing at Brickhouse Point, just opposite West Point. West Point is a small river town that occupies a spit of land between the Mattapony and Pamunkey rivers. The 1st regiment to come ashore, the 27th New York under Colonel Joseph J. Bartlett, deploys as skirmishers. Meanwhile, the rest of the division hastens to build an artificial dock out of the pontoon boats. Everything looks prosperous for Franklin's 1st Division. The Bluecoats are exactly where they are needed to be to strike the Confederate rear. A 12-mile march might put them at Burnt Ordinary by midnight. If they make the nighttime trek, they'd be astride the Confederate line of retreat. Unfortunately, General Franklin's men discover they aren't alone at Brickhouse Point. To their surprise, they discover that General Joe Johnston has dispatched Brigadier General William C. H. Whiting's division, 11,000 strong, to Barnesville, just 6 miles south of the beachhead. Johnston does not intend to counterattack, but merely wants to use Barnesville as a line of retreat from Williamsburg. However, once Johnston learns of the presence of Franklin's division ahead of him, he feels it is wise to brush it aside. Although he tells General Whiting to fill out the Union beachhead, the Confederates under Whiting's command plan to make an aggressive attack. They would attempt to drive the Union troops back into the York River. The 27th New York detects the Confederate presence as the New York skirmishers trudge into the dense woods southeast of Eltham. They capture 2 soldiers belonging to the 5th Texas from Brigadier General John Bell Hood's Texas Brigade. Upon hearing this, General Franklin decides to hold his position until the size of the enemy threat could be determined. With little daylight remaining, he orders a strong picket line to advance into the woods, while the rest of his troops bed for the night. The soldiers of the 27th New York receive no opportunity to sleep. They remain on alert all evening. In the darkness, it doesn't take long for Union and Confederate skirmishers to make contact with each other. At midnight, 2nd Lieutenant John L. Bailey of Company D is trooping his line of pickets. He had just stopped to speak to one of them, Corporal Henry Crocker, when he hears footsteps approaching. Both he and Crocker grab rifles. Bailey shouts, "Halt! Who comes there?" The 2 shadowy figures emerge from the brush. Both of them are Confederates. They raise their muskets. 2 shots ring out. Only Crocker and one of the Confederates have fired, but both of them hit their targets. Crocker kills a Confederate sergeant by shooting him through the neck. The other shadowy figure, who happens to be Private John Cousins of the 4th Alabama, kills Lieutenant Bailey, struck in the heart. Bailey dies instantly. He is just 26 years old. The noise alerts the skirmish line on both sides. Throughout the woods, jumpy pickets begin firing at nothing, alarmed by the sound of 2 shots coming from the deadly encounter along the 27th New York's picket line. Crocker and his companion race back into the woods, reloading as they go. They spend the remainder of the night in silence, awaiting an attack that never comes. The surviving Alabama soldier, Private Cousins, likewise beats a hasty retreat. He reports the news of this deadly encounter to his superiors. The next morning, General Franklin has Brigadier General Newton's 3rd Brigade posted in the woods on either side of the landing road, supported in the rear by portions of Brigadier General Taylor's 1st Brigade, known as the 1st New Jersey Brigade, and Brigadier General Slocum's 2nd Brigade. At 7 a.m. on May 7, 1862, the Battle of Eltham's Landing, also known by Northerners present at the fighting as the Battle of West Point, begins when the Federal pickets on Newton's right flank from the 95th Pennsylvania start firing on the lead cavalry pickets from Whiting's division. Newton immediately directs Captain William Hexamer's Battery A New Jersey artillery with 4 10-pounder Parrott rifles to limber up and proceed towards the threatened position. Pickets from the 95th Pennsylvania then signal the rebels approaching in a large force, with cavalry and artillery upon Newton's right flank. Colonel John M. Gosselin, commanding the 95th Pennsylvania, receives orders from Brigadier General Newton to deploy his regiment as skirmishers through the extensive and heavy woods towards the reported Confederate positions. Colonel Gosselin deploys companies A, B, C, D, E, F, and K to the right and left of Barnesville Road, leading directly through the woods, holding the remaining 3 companies, G, H, and I, near the edge and center of the woods as a reserve. Lieutenant Colonel Towne commands the right wing of the Federal skirmishers, while Major Hubbs oversees the left wing and Colonel Gosselin stands in the middle of the skirmish line. The companies of the 95th Pennsylvania advance cautiously forward through the heavy woods southwest of the building known as a Brickhouse. Meanwhile, William H.C. Whiting directs Hood's Texas Brigade, made up of the 1st, 4th, and 5th Texas Infantry Regiments, along with the 18th Georgia, to advance on the Brickhouse along the Barnesville Road and attack Newton's pickets. Meanwhile, Brigadier General Wade Hampton's brigade is ordered to detach the 19th Georgia and the Hampton Legion to skirmish on the division's right flank. Whiting's brigade under Colonel Evander M. Law would be held in reserve. The Confederate cavalry doesn't do Whiting's men any favors. Some of them have fallen asleep at their vedette post the night before and do nothing to guide Whiting's infantrymen when they come passing through. General Hood nearly loses his life because of poor reconnaissance. Around 9 a.m., Hood finds several Confederate cavalry scouts asleep at their post. Paying them no mind, he marches his brigade through the line of vedettes, stopping only when he encounters Union skirmishers of Company F, 16th New York. As Hood remembered it, I did not discover the Federals till they were almost close enough to shake hands. A wide-eyed Union corporal levels his weapon at Hood, demanding the surrender. Having a quick choice to make, surrender or run for it, Hood leaps from his horse and orders, "Forward into line!" Hood's lead regiment, the 4th Texas, begins changing formation, going from column into line of battle. The men hastily load their muskets as they make the tricky change of formation. Earlier in the morning, Hood had given orders to march with unloaded weapons. Now, as he stares down the barrel of the Union rifle, he greatly regrets that decision. As Hood frantically watches his line form, the Union soldier who accosted him, Corporal George J. Love of Company F, 16th New York, draws a bead on him. For an instant, it looks as if Hood's number is up. Luckily, one of his men, Private John Dill of the 4th Texas, has defied orders and marched the entire way to Brickhouse Point with a loaded weapon. He fires upon Corporal Love, killing him, and saves his brigade commander's life. Hood's Texas Brigade deploys in full line of battle, pushing back 2 companies from the 16th New York. Companies F and G of the 16th fight hard, giving away stubbornly. Between them, they number 3 officers and 102 enlisted men. During the battle, the New Yorkers lose 6 killed, 11 wounded, and 2 captured. Colonel Gosline orders his regiment's own skirmishers to fall back through the woods. They continue to fall back along the main road, still keeping a brisk fire towards Hood's Texans as they withdraw. General Hood keeps the 18th Georgia led by Colonel William T. H. Wofford in reserve, then throws forward the 4th Texas as skirmishers. Supported by the 1st Texas Infantry Regiment under Colonel Alex T. Rainey, the Texans proceed to drive the 95th Pennsylvania through the dense woods while under heavy fire. Whiting's brigades moved to drive into the woods, pushing back the Union skirmishers 1.5 miles. When the Confederate artillerists argue that the transports are beyond their range and with the Union infantry sheltered by a bluff, Whiting abandons the attack. This minor engagement has lasted only 2 hours. General Whiting's advance secures the Confederate flank, permitting the uneventful passage of the wagon train. General Johnston is pleased with the outcome, considering the success his men enjoyed in executing the order to feel the enemy gently and fall back. He humorously asked Brigadier General Hood, "What would your Texans have done, sir, if I had ordered them to charge and drive back the enemy?" Hood replies, "I suppose, General, they would have driven them into the river and tried to swim out and capture the gunboats." In the end, the Battle of Eltham's Landing is inconclusive. Brigadier General Franklin has missed an excellent opportunity to intercept the Confederates' retreat and cut them off from their escape route towards Richmond, allowing them to fall back into their defensive works unhindered by the Federals. McClellan would have to continue his offensive against the Confederates overland across the peninsula.